Hi, everybody. Have an exciting episode today. I have Bruce Dean, who's the co-founder and chairman of the board for Black Bear Diner. So Bruce and his co-founder started Black Bear. I'm sure you guys have all been to a Black Bear. They're incredible restaurants. Started in Mount Shasta as a single restaurant, and then he talks about the journey to growing the business to currently 166 restaurants in 14 states and growing. Along the way, he shares the successes, some of the challenges, some of the failures, and it's just an incredible episode. Can't wait for you to listen.
Welcome to the North State Rocks podcast. Discover the hidden gems and extraordinary people of California's North State region. Join Perry Thompson, CEO of Hat Creek Construction and Materials, as he explores the vibrant communities and interesting neighbors that make our region a great place to live, work, and play. Tune in, be inspired, and rediscover the North State. This is your community. This is your story.
We got Bruce Dean, co-founder and chairman of the board now. Is that the proper title of Black Bear Diner?
Right. Yeah. So no, glad to be here and glad to kind of tell our story. And there's things to be learned, I think, by everybody in business, by the path that we've taken and the founders out there of businesses. And, there's things I've learned over the years on how this works. We founded Black Bear Diner. Me and a partner, Bob Manley, founded Black Bear Diner 30 years ago in Mount Shasta. I've been in the restaurant business forever. I've been in it since I was 15 years old, and Bob had never been in the business. He was an artist and a teacher, but we were good friends, and so I had an opportunity to do a restaurant in Mount Shasta that had been there. I'd been running a company up in Siskiyou County as kind of a CEO of a company that was doing gas station convenience stores, and we had a restaurant, a motel, and I ran that company and built a whole bunch of new gas station C stores up in Siskiyou County. But in 1995, I had an opportunity to do a restaurant in Mount Shasta. I had the food. Again, I've been in the business 55 years, so I know the food. I know how to run a business, but I wasn't the most creative guy in the world. So Bob, again, being an artist and stuff, him and his wife owned a wildlife gallery in Mount Shasta called Shasta Wildlife Gallery. And they had all kinds of artwork and gift items and things that were pretty neat. And so I went to Bob and said, hey, I've got this option to do a restaurant down here next to the freeway in Mount Shasta, but I don't have an idea what to name it and, kind of the cultural piece behind it. And he said, well, let me think about it. So he's a creative guy. And so him and his wife came up with the name Black Bear Diner and brought a bunch of the artwork out of his wildlife gallery, brought the gift shop down, and created this restaurant that really ended up having a special feel. We didn't know that it was going to be more than ever just one restaurant. We didn't plan this to be what we are today, which is 166 restaurants across 14 states. Never thought we'd be more than one. Thought we would just have our friends over and have some fun with this. We opened the doors September 22nd, 1995. And basically the doors got blown off over the next period of time, and just much more than we ever thought it was going to be. We had people driving from Redding to come up, and a lot of people like spending time in Mount Shasta anyway, so they'd climbs on the mountain and always fit in Black Bear, and people come to town just to get out of the heat in Redding, and so it got busy right off the bat, more than we ever thought. Bob and I worked 38 straight days when we opened it and didn't plan on that. We worked 16 hours a day. We lost 40 pounds each during the first 38 days. And that's true, because when you're in the restaurant business, you're around food all the time. And you think, oh, wow, I'll just eat. Well, when you're around food that much, you don't feel like eating. So we lost 40 pounds each in the first 38 days and got the thing off the ground. We didn't have any money either. And against a lot of businesses out there, people that are listening will understand that, we didn't have much. I think I sold a boat. Bob went into his retirement plan for being a teacher, and we put together $40,000, and that's what we started Black Bear with, was $40,000. And so, which isn't much, basically I build a restaurant nowadays, open, it takes a couple $1,000,000 to open a restaurant. And we opened it with 40,000. So that's why we were there, 16 hours a day. We couldn't afford to hire a lot of people. I cooked, Bob poured coffee, and we got the thing off the ground. And we got some help from the landlord to help us with some TI improvements on the building. And we got some help from our grocery provider, Cisco, and they gave us some terms, and we got it off the ground. But again, been nothing that we ever anticipated.
So you said something interesting. Well, you said a lot of interesting things there, but you contrasted, hey, 40,000 is kind of how we started. And we think it takes, well, you've done 166 of them. It takes 2 million now. So can you just kind of give us an overview of what that 2 million does to open a new one now?
Well, what it is, you have to take a building or get a new building. Right now, we found it's just as cheap to kind of get a new building than it is to refurbish an old one. A refurbished diner, which we did, the first 60, 70 restaurants we did were all refurbishments of concepts that were there before us, but you never really know what you get. I mean, the plumbing could be bad, the roof bad, the HVAC is bad, everything's wore out. You have to replace everything. And we found out that we could have a landlord build us a new shell, and make the improvements in the site, parking lot, sidewalks and all that kind of stuff. They put that in, then they build us a shell, and then we finish the shell. So that's what it costs to finish a shell, put all of our equipment in, hood systems in, HVAC, walk-ins, freezers, all the things you need in a restaurant. And to get all that in, obviously that's much more expensive nowadays than it ever was. It's really gone up since the pandemic, 35% minimally on things, if you can even get things even to this day. But also we learned that, we're hiring now about 120 people for every diner that we open. And you just can't bring people in and not train them. So we end up bringing in 120 people, spending a couple weeks, 80 hours per employee to train them. So we'll spend $250,000 now in just what we call pre-opening expenses, getting the people ready to handle the restaurant, to learn what we're about, learn the menu, learn how to do it. And we really need to do that, because when you open a restaurant, and maybe like many businesses, everybody in town wants to try you in the first 2 weeks, right? So you're as busy as you will ever be at the beginning, with the staff that's as least trained as they will ever be. And it's easy to get overwhelmed. And so you really have to hire a lot of people to help that. You end up, some folks just can't keep up with that pressure, and they decide to go back to where they worked before. And so it becomes an expensive proposition to open a restaurant, not just from, again, the building, making the building going, the equipment, then you have to stock the place with food, and all these things cost money. And then you throw in the pre-opening expenses with the employees, and you've got a tall ticket.
Wow.
Yeah.
That absolutely makes complete sense about everybody trying the restaurant the first 2 weeks. It makes complete sense. Everyone's like, oh, it's a new restaurant, let's go check it out. And then, of course, your reviews kind of sets the standard for how you're going to be accepted into that community, right?
Your least capable time is when you're open. So I always tell everybody, give us a month, right. We'll settle down and be able to give you a great service. I mean, the landscape is littered with restaurants that opened busy, disappointed guests, and people don't forget. Maybe they'll give you a second try, but most won't. And so if you sit there and mess up when people come in, they're less likely to give you another shot. I mean, I'm a customer. You're a customer, Perry. I mean, and all the people that are going to listen to this podcast are a customer of restaurants. We love going to restaurants. And you've had good experiences that you'll go back to. You'll have bad experiences that you won't go back to. And so you want to limit those bad experiences and to keep your business going. I always tell people it's not how much business I'm doing today at my opening, it's how much business I'm doing in a year. Because if I disappoint people today, they won't be back in a year. And we've had our successes and failures with that over time, to be honest with you. It drives me crazy, but it's true.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if it was easy, anybody could do it. So that's the challenge. And I'll say, feel like the restaurant game is probably one of the most challenging games in business. I mean, what is your experience? I know you've been involved in tons of different businesses and you counsel a lot of different businesses.
Right.
If you're going to recommend somebody, hey, I want to start a business, where would restaurant be in your top 10 of choices that you say, hey, I want to be a business owner?
Understand, you've got to be passionate about what you do. If you love food and you want to have a restaurant and serve people your passion, I think that's great. The restaurant business is a great step up industry in our economy where people with great ideas can do something and really put their fingerprints on it and make it successful. But understand that about 75% of restaurants fail in the first 5 years. And so this high level of failure is something you need to understand. They didn't necessarily fail because you had a bad idea or that you didn't execute this concept that you're trying to put out properly. You failed because basically you ran out of money. The biggest failure of restaurants is that they've run out of money. They didn't open quite right. They didn't invest right in their staffing. I just told you we're spending over $200,000 in pre-opening expenses that it's not like I'm spending $250,000 on something I can put my hands on.
Right.
It's on training people. And if you don't train your people, if you don't spend the time to do things right, your risk of failure in the restaurant business grows exponentially.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
okay. So I want to back up a little bit on why. I understand, when you're starting out, you had this building, you're able to get into this existing building with a great location and kind of step in. So as the company succeeded and started moving forward, why did you maybe you dabbled in it, but did you ever dabble in actually owning the real estate, or did you always go with the rental concept, and why?
well, we told you that we didn't start with a lot of money.
Yeah.
We started with very little. And to own real estate costs a lot. Yeah. So we made the decision that we had a concept that we could grow, that people liked, that we could go different places with. But if I decided to start owning the real estate, that would have taken up all our operating capital that we had, and we had none. So it was the easiest path to take to grow the business without owning the real estate. Now Bob and I own one of our real estate in Wairika, California. We own that. But generally, everything's leased across the system because we needed to use our capital for growth, not owning real estate. Now, if you can own the real estate, that's the best way to go. You can do it. But if you can't make it happen, then we took the growth. Now, also, I've been on a bank board, and so I know inside on all this stuff. The banking industry as a whole is not really too excited to loan on restaurants because of the high failure rate, right? So, you can use up your capital and even the amount of money that you can borrow from a bank and tie that up on one unit on real estate, and you're done. You don't have any more capacity, lending capacity, borrowing capacity. So that's what we did. And that's also why, one of the things that we did early on, I'll kind of tell the story, is that, in 1997, we came to Redding and did our restaurant Redding, which was very successful. Again, leased the real estate. We had a guy down there that owned the real estate and had a restaurant in there and failed. And he's seen us in Mount Shasta. He basically told us, come here, I'll give you everything you need to open in Redding. And we needed to do that because we didn't have the cash. So July 1, 1997, we opened in Reading, which was very successful. Then Bob and I thought we were really smart guys and that we could do it, you know. So we went to Chico and did one in the wrong location. And then we went to Red Bluff and decided that we could do that in Red Bluff too. And we took the wrong location. Chico was too small, Red Bluff was too big. And we found out that if you have two restaurants, it may be 3 times as hard as doing one, but having 4 restaurants is 10 times as hard as doing one, because we couldn't be everywhere. We couldn't do everything like we'd done in Mount Shasta and Reading. And so those didn't go well for us. And we just made the decision that we were going to retrench after we did those. And those really stretched our cash flow. You talk about cash flow issues. Holy Toledo.
Yeah. Yeah.
We did that in 1998. And again, we thought we were really smart guys, but we came within this much of going out of business in November 1998 because we'd opened too many restaurants and we'd stretched our cash flow. And by the time it came around to November, Bob and I, after 3 years of not doing anything but working, decided we were going to take one of those 3 or 4 day cruises in Mexico just to get out of town for sanity's sake. And I didn't know when we left on Friday if we'd be in business on Tuesday. If we had a good weekend, I could make payroll on Tuesday. If we had a bad weekend, I would have probably been shutting the business down. So that's how close it was. And again, we were running out of cash, no access to capital. I made some bad decisions around growing too much in Chico and Red Bluff. Should have never done it. Well, we made it and made payroll. I decided we weren't really losing money in Chico and Red Bluff, but we knew that those sites weren't us. As you open a business and grow it, you kind of know. It takes a while to kind of figure out what you are, what kind of building you fit in, how you want to be organized, how the restaurant needs to be. And they weren't it. We knew Chico was too small. We knew Red Bluff was too big. And so we ended up closing them. We just said, look, this isn't us. We need to retrench. Chico, we found somebody to take the site. And so we didn't get hurt too bad. But in Red Bluff, I paid rent on an empty building for over 3 years at a time that I couldn't really afford it. But I knew that it was the right move. I had to retrench and get back. And luckily, Mount Shasta and Reading were successful enough that I could pay the rent in Red Bluff for 3.5 years and survive. But it was the right move. We retrenched back. We opened Wairika. We had an opportunity there was a former chain in Northern California and across the country called Jerry's. And they've been.
Hey, before let me stop just real quick because I know where you're going with this, but this is really important. Yeah. You said you paid 3 years of rent on Red Bluff, right? And so, can you just talk to the audience just a little bit about, recognizing, you and I have talked about it before, but there's sunk cost, right? You quit crying over it. You've got to do what's best for your business moving forward, even though it hurts. But I see so many people, I've done it. I've made the mistake of going, no, I can't. I've spent all this money. So therefore I've got to continue spending money. And if I just keep investing in it, hopefully it's going to turn around. And so how did you have the clarity to go, oh my God, especially at that young age of being a business owner with your partner, at that young age going, hey, this is not working, but we got to pay 3 years. I think 90% of people in that situation would have just band-aided it together and not taken that hit of 3 years. So how did you have the discipline or foresight to know that was the right decision?
Well, I'd learned the hard way previous to that. Another venture I was in a subdivision venture. I decided that I was going to subdivide land and sell land in the early 90s up in Siskiyou County. And in my gut, I knew it was the wrong thing. I'd spent money getting it ready. I think back in the day, I'd spent, $7,500, $100,000 doing the subdivision maps and all the things that I needed to do. But in my gut, I knew it was bad. But I was not willing to walk away from the money that I'd spent. And it was the worst decision I ever made, in that I ended up losing a lot more. Economy went bad, and things went bad on the thing. And so I didn't walk away, because I wasn't willing to walk away from that original investment. Smartest decision I would have made would have been to walk away from it and sit there and stem my losses, at that amount, and move on. So same thing here. And so I learned a lesson that we didn't feel right. I had a significant amount of money in there, but it wasn't going to be our future. So I took the loss over 3 years, and put it behind me, learned about us, learned about the business, learned how I could be successful. And but that's a hard thing. And a lot of people don't want to do that. Like you say, you might not have done it, You have to recognize not every decision that you make is going to be a right one. I've been pretty lucky over my career that 95% of the decisions I made have turned out right. But that was one of the 5%. It was very painful.
Yeah.
And but it was the right call.
Okay, so that's great. That was a great explanation. So, next question for you. You said a couple times, hey, we know what the right location is. Those were the wrong locations. And, you talked about size. So as you move forward, especially after, the pain of these two, not working out, what did you learn about what categorizes as the right location, and how did you map that moving forward? Because I know you're getting ready to talk about the Jerry's opportunity, which was multi-restaurants. And so how did you vet those to make better decisions moving forward?
How it worked with that is that they were still in business. They were failing. The owners came to us and said, look, you obviously have kind of a way of doing things. Mount Shasta was a Jerry's, and back in the old days, Redding was a Jerry's. And we converted them, and they were very successful. They had a number of restaurants that were unsuccessful. And so they came to us and said, look, why don't you help us convert these restaurants that we've got? We'll pay you a royalty, kind of a licensing / franchise fee to do that. And so, again, we just walked away from Chico and Red Bluff, and it was a way for us to grow. And so we agreed to that. So we signed a deal with them, and we converted their restaurants in Sparks, Nevada, Susanville, California, Willows, California, Salinas, California, Las Vegas, Nevada. And these were all restaurants they were struggling in. But we had a concept that would work in these restaurants. So we helped them convert, and it stemmed their losses. They'd lost over $1 million the previous year to this, which I think was 1999. And we started converting their restaurants in 2000 and saved them. And they actually became a partner moving forward with us as we got bigger. So that was good. We kind of converted all their restaurants, and we knew that we had a brand that was going to carry. We knew we had something. So we started a franchise company in 2002, understanding that we had this brand that we could duplicate. Franchising means you need to be able to duplicate your success in a number of places. And we've been able to prove the brand was successful in Sparks, Nevada, all these places, Salinas, Las Vegas was a big one for us, because here you're taking a concept from Mount Shasta with 3,000 people and putting it in Las Vegas with millions, right? And people loved us in Las Vegas just as much as they loved us in Mount Shasta or Redding. So we learned that we could grow this thing. So we could then franchise it. We'd proven that the portability of the brand. And so that's how we started franchising. And that's really how we grew the brand for a number of years after that, is by signing franchise agreements. We would then go help them convert their restaurant to Black Bear. We would help them open it. We would go personally, and I'd be cooking and Bob pouring coffee at these restaurants that we franchised. So we started doing that in Bend, Oregon, and Madras, Oregon, and did it in Arizona. Did it in Nevada in the Reno market, and so converted these restaurants and turned them into franchise units. And that's what we did through 2008. And but in 2008, obviously the recession happened, and the franchisee growth kind of dried up because, one, there was no access to capital. There was, nobody wanted to lend on a restaurant. The economy was tough. Sales were challenged, all of that. But to me, that was the time I needed to invest. I needed to show confidence in my brand, confidence in what we were doing, that the people, our customers, would come in the front door. So there was great opportunities in real estate at that time because a lot of brands failed. So we took 2 restaurants that were a brand that had failed called Baker Square, and we converted them in Modesto, California, and Davis, California, and to Black Bear, and we owned them ourselves. They weren't franchised, so we owned them. We couldn't spend a lot to convert them. I couldn't spend a lot on those pre-opening expenses that I talked to you about. So again, we were doing it all ourselves. And interesting story on the Davis, California unit is that I had worked in that unit when I went to college at UC Davis in 1974 through 76. And my daughter, who went to UC Davis, had worked in it from like 94 to 96. And so here I had this opportunity to get this restaurant that had this great historical and personal perspective and turn it into a Black Bear. So I was glad to do that.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah. So then those went well. And then that showed my franchisees that, hey, look, we can start investing again. Look, they did it. Right. I can't ask my franchisees to do something that I won't do myself. Same way as I can't ask an employee of one of our diners to do something that I wouldn't do myself. And so we showed that the brand was strong and good and could weather the recession. And we came out of the recession out of 2010 with 28 quarters of same-store sales growth. In our business, the success is kind of rated on your same-store sales growth. Are you growing or are you shrinking? You're increasing guests or you're shrinking guests. And we came out of the recession with 28 quarters of same-store sales growth, which really set us on our path to success. We have started selling lots of franchises. We opened a lot of them ourselves, a lot of restaurants ourselves. And then in 2016, I'd grown the brand to about 75 restaurants. And I kind of outrun my ability to convert sites. I had a small line of credit with a local bank that helped me. I was really thankful to them for giving that to me. It was like $1 million line of credit, but it was key. But I'd outrun that, and I knew I had a brand that could grow across the country, and so we sold a share of the business to a private equity company out of New York City that wanted to invest in us and helped us, gave us the access to equity. They put money in the business, gave us access to debt because we had to borrow to keep growing. And that was another big key to our success, is that we chose the right partner. They've been very good for us, and they've not been demanding. Some private equity companies, when private equity buys a share of your business, they become very demanding of you and will oftentimes make you change the business for a profit motive that may not be good for the business long term. They never did that with us. And so with them, we've grown from 75 to 166 and still growing today. We opened one a couple of weeks ago in El Paso, Texas, and we're opening some more in the Houston market, and we're growing. We opened one in Illinois, and we're going into Wisconsin. So we're really spreading our wings, but I could never have done that without the private equity investment. So that was a turning point. And a lot of people don't understand private equity. You're not selling out your company. You're basically selling either a minority part of your equity or a majority part of your equity. We sold a majority part of our equity because some of my partners needed to be cashed out at that point. And that was a way of doing that, of monetizing their investment. But, we hung on to a significant share of it. And here we are almost 10 years later with our private equity partner, which wasn't the plan. because private equity generally invests in you and want to turn their investment in 5 to 7 years. They have investors. How private equity works, I think probably everybody knows that, they go out and gather a bunch of money from various sources and combine it into a fund. And then they lend out of that fund or purchase out of that fund, and 7, 8, 9, 10 different companies are part of that fund. And generally those people that put money in want to get it back in a 7, 8, 9 year time period. So generally private equity wants to turn those investments every 5 to 7 years. Well, we've been almost at 10 because, well, guess what happened in 2000, pandemic. We were looking, that was almost going to be 5 years, and then the pandemic hit. Then what happened after that? Well, in my business, food inflation went nuts. There was shortages of supply. Our food products ended up going up 35%. And then, you can't take that kind of hit without raising prices. And at the same time, the customers became very sensitive to price. So that was another one. And then interest rates went up, and that made it difficult. And
right.
So whack-a-mole. And, and in our business too, we're in the breakfast business. A significant portion of our business is breakfast. Well, what happened last year? Eggs went through the roof. We usually would pay $1.15 a dozen. In the past, that went to over almost $8 a dozen. And I don't believe in charging surcharges. You would go to a lot of restaurants and say, eggs, we're going to add $1 surcharge for every egg you buy or something. I didn't believe in it. I just believed that it was temporary. I didn't want to do anything that would change my customers' habits, that they love coming to Black Bear. I didn't want to give them any reason not to come to Black Bear or love Black Bear. So basically we ate that price of increase in the cost of eggs for over the first 4 or 5 months of the year. And that cost us over $1 million. But I felt it was the right thing to do. So no surcharges when you come into Black Bear, no split plate charges. I hate that. You go into a restaurant and you want to sit there and say, we don't feel like eating that much. We'll go ahead and split a meal. And a lot of restaurants will charge you for that empty plate, right? Not me. I don't believe it's right. You want to come in, you want to buy a meal, you want to give half to your kids or spouse or whatever, have at it. I'm not going to charge you for an empty plate. Same way I'm not going to charge you a surcharge to buy an egg. So it's just some of my long-term beliefs.
So that's incredible. So, you covered a lot of ground there, which is awesome. So I want to back up just a little bit, Bruce, and can you explain how, I think a lot of people listening, when you're talking about franchising, right, you're basically taking your concept and you're helping them. You've shown duplicatability and that you've shown previous success. So what they're buying basically is your blueprint, kind of how the restaurant looks, how your training program, your menu, your ingredients, those kinds of things, right? But how do you pick the right team member to go execute it? Meaning Bob and Joe Smith, or they want one to do one in Tucson, and they're saying, trust us. How did you vet each one of those people to make sure? Because it's your brand. If they go and they F it up, that's on you, right? That's going to show on your brand. So how did you manage that?
We've made our mistakes over the years. To be honest with you, that we've, generally I've had some real long-term franchisees over almost 23, 24 years since we started. Have been my franchisees, very successful, great partnerships, and they have the same values as us. So you got to have the same values as to what we're trying to do, understand what we're trying to do, and agree to do it the way that we would like it done, because we've proven success with that. But occasionally you have a franchisee who thinks they know better. And that's just not Black Bear. That's the franchise model out there, that these are folks that own the business. I don't own the business. I give them a model for success, and I give them some guardrails they need to stay within. But they're their own business people. They hire their own people. They schedule their own people. They do everything. I tell them where to buy their food. I don't allow them to go out and buy their food anywhere, because I want the food to be the same whether you're in Redding, California here, or you're in Houston, Texas, or Seattle, Washington, or whatever. You go into a Black Bear, the food's the same. And that's really important. You can't have a mixture of stuff, then you don't have a brand. So we set some of the guardrails for that, where they buy it, what they can serve, but how they staff the restaurant and how they do it's up to them. So you have to trust the relationship. You talk with your potential franchisees. You look at their experience in our business. I had some people one point that hadn't been in the business but loved Black Bear, wanted to do it, pledged their ever loving support for us, and but it just wasn't them. They didn't have the experience for it. And again, everybody in town shows up within 2 weeks of opening, and you've got a franchisee who's not used to that. And so we've gotten away from that. We used to be able to sell to an individual operator and somebody, unless they've got significant experience. I just really feel we're better served by selling our franchises to people that have bigger companies that maybe have other concepts and know what it's like to be in the business.
So that was excellent description. Thank you. So when private equity joined, your model that went from 75 to 166 and growing, is that a franchise model, or is the private equity group the owner of that business and they're the ones in your team putting all the people in place?
Private equity is an investor. They're still their investor in Black Bear Diner, and they own the majority share of my company, but the majority share of the voting stock they own, right? Okay. But they don't. Private equity doesn't want to run your business for you. They want you to run your business. That's the model. That they invest in a number of companies and invest in management teams that are going to carry out what they've done in the past. And so they love the founder model, like me, I was founder. They love that because we got passion for what we're doing. We believe in it. We were there from day one. So they want to just invest in that and allow us to grow it. They don't want to run it. They let us run it. So the best private equity companies are the ones that help you, advise you, give you the ability to grow, but get out of your way to do it. So that's how that works.
Okay. Excellent. Okay. So now that you're growing, you're in 14 different states. Headquarters is still in Redding, right? So, this podcast is called North State Rock. So why do you think the North State model, I know you guys have kind of a, the bear theme, large portions, kind of country, like home, soulful type home food, very consistent. Why do you think that North State model works so well nationally? What is it?
Because I just think that people across the country, everybody likes to eat like we like to eat up here. No matter what you say, people kind of want to they like large portions. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to eat it all, but they love having the opportunity to, and they love the opportunity to maybe take some home. People are the same across the country. They want to make sure that they get their money's worth. It's not so much how much you pay, it's the value that you receive for what you pay for. So whatever business you're in, or whoever's listening in on the podcast, and whatever business they're in, if their customers don't perceive value in what you're selling them or the service that you're providing them, no matter what the cost, they're going to walk away from you. And so you have to provide great value. And value is just not determined in price. Value is determined in what you get, the service that's provided to give it to you, and the environment in which it's provided. So in our instance, again, we've got cabin themed restaurants that we started in Mount Shasta. It was really, cedar and big carved bears and, beams and things that cabin feel. People like that everywhere. It's just Mount Shasta. And that was one of our learnings, is that People in Las Vegas like that same feel. People in Los Angeles like that same feel. The Bay Area, Phoenix, Houston, Dallas, Oklahoma City, Salt Lake City, Denver. They all like that. They all want to feel comfortable. And then again, the value perspective about what you're getting from the food, and then to be provided by people that are hopefully happy to be there, want to provide great service, and is, to me, also the fact that we build these buildings that are kind of fun and we have jukeboxes in them that are playing music all the time. And I wanted to provide it not just for the customers, but for our employees, an environment that they feel nice working in. If they feel good working in the environment we provide them, they're gonna take care of our customers.
Right.
Invest in your staff, and if your staff is happy in whatever business you're in, they're going to make sure your customers are happy. If and a lot of people go to the customers first, then back to the staff. I believe invest in the staff; they will take care of your customers. So.
That's brilliant advice, and not talked about enough, because they're basically represent the brand. That's who's touching the customers is your employees. And if they don't feel taken care of, they're never going to take care of your customers. It's just a cause and effect.
Whether it's your business, Perry, or mine. If
Right.
the staff is not happy being there, they're not going to do great work. They're not going to make sure your customers are happy. And, it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Okay, so we've interviewed a lot of people from the Susanville area. So talk about, I think it's a lumberjack now. So that was a Jerry's there. You started there. So it'll be a great lesson for our group, because even though you took over some of these Jerry's, they didn't necessarily continue to be successful. So what were some of the determining factors on where, as you grew, you were also closing some of these smaller town ones, and why, Bruce?
We opened in Susanville. I know you've got a significant presence in Susanville. Mm-hmm. And when we took it over at Jerry's back in 1999, I think, and converted it to Black Bear Diner. And at one point, it was far away. We were small at the time. That was probably restaurant number 4 or 5. And so it was far away, not easy to get from Reading to Susanville in your car, right? Now, you fly a plane, so it's easy from you to get to Reading to Susanville. You probably go up and down in 15 minutes and you're there. But when you're driving, it's a couple hours, right? So it was too far to really take good care of. So I basically sold it to a franchisee back in the day. And so because she could take care of it and be from Susanville and take care of it, make sure that things were right there. But then we had a fire in Susanville. Somebody left a fryer on or something one night and burned the place down. And during that time, the lease ran out, and my franchisee was not willing to carry forward. And so basically, she made the decision to sell it to another restaurant concept, and that's how that happened. So that worked out. You want to limit the number of things that happen. We had a restaurant in Alturas too. Again, pretty small town. I don't know if I would do that again today.
Right.
But back in the day, there were buses that ran up and down 395 from Oregon to Reno. There was these gambling buses that ran. This is 25 years ago, and made that restaurant very successful at one point. But at some point, there started less and less buses going down the road to Reno. Difficult to do it. I basically sold it to a franchisee that was local. Say, look, if you want to run it. But it just they didn't do a great job, and so it closed over time. So to the point, not everything works out. This is a business that you have to have great people running it. I could never have done any of this without having great employees, great managers, people that ran it like Bob and I wanted it run. The values and culture that we wanted created, the way we wanted our customers to be treated, whether it's a Black Bear, in Klamath Falls or Black Bear and Bend or Madras or wherever. We want our customers treated well. We want the brand executed well. I want the food to be the same in those sites as it is here, where I'm looking at it every day. So that's the secrets to growth, and it doesn't always work out. So
Yeah,
that's
understandable. So now that you guys are opening all these restaurants, is there like a certain demographic, or hey, we want to be at an intersection with this kind of a traffic count, or are there, I would imagine you kind of have a few things that have got to be checked before you invest in that location.
For a long time, it was feeling in my stomach. Oh,
Really?
I know that this is a good spot. I know it. I can sense it. For the longest time, we like to be within stone's throw of a freeway.
Right.
In Mount Shasta, we're right on the freeway.
Yep.
Right on the freeway. In Willows, we're right on the freeway. And that was kind of a recipe, because that was significant business that was going up and down the road 100 yards from you year round. And then you add the local business onto it. It was a recipe for success. And that's what I felt in my stomach. There was no real demographic survey or anything like that at the time. But now we take a much more sophisticated approach to it. And we hire a company that looks at every location, can go into credit card data for that market and see where from other people, that other businesses in the market, can see where all the credit cards are coming from into that market. You can see how that will affect the business there, how many people are coming in. You also can get some data around how far these things need to be apart. You could sit there and say, oh, I want to put a Black Bear here, and then I can put another one 3 or 4 miles from it. Well, now we know that might not be a good idea, because that 3 or 4 miles, maybe all those customers are coming to your existing restaurant. We did that in Las Vegas. We opened one. We had one on Tropicana and Jones in Las Vegas, and we opened one on Sahara and Durango, which isn't that far, 3 or 4 miles. Well, we found out that was too close, and it's taken us years to build the business up to the point that each is nicely profitable. But at the beginning, we cannibalized ourselves. So this site tool that we pay for will look at that. We'll look at where your customers are coming from. Will you cannibalize any other existing sites? And we'll give you an actual guess, an educated guess on what kind of volume you can expect from the site. So those are good tools. We need them.
Yeah.
Now, you can get all the tools in the world, and if you don't do a great job opening the restaurant, or you hire the wrong manager to do it, or you do whatever, all this time spent looking at this location, all the time and money spent building it. If I say the investment doesn't stop the minute you open the door. You keep having to invest in people and in your team, in marketing and all those other things. And a lot of people miss the boat and sit there and say, look, I'll just get the place open, and they stop the investment. That's a mistake. You've got to keep investing, especially investing in people.
So investing in people, let's start with a manager. How do you guys, how do you pick your managers, and is it just they turn in resumes? This guy that's a good person. Do you have a pretty, multi-phased interview process? Do you have based on experience? Do we use a recruiter? What do you guys use now that you're so big?
All of the above. But the reality is that a manager is key to our success. We have a good manager, we have a good Black Bear. We'll have a Black Bear, a manager that doesn't quite get what we're trying to do. We'll have an average Black Bear. And if we have one that's just not very good at it, we won't have a good one at all. We won't have a good restaurant. Everything that we've invested can go to naught. So I've learned that we're best growing our managers from within our business than coming from without. Okay. Somebody who's looking for a manager's job that isn't working in my business is basically unemployed for a reason. Yeah. Because you know what, there's just you hang on to good managers. And other concepts, same way. In whoever business you're in, you got great people. I believe in investing to keeping them, right? So,
Right.
and generally every business has a culture. So my business has a certain culture. Whoever's out there, their business has a certain culture. Your business has a certain culture. And it's hard to bring people in from the outside that came from a different culture into your brand, your specific brand culture. So we find it best that we grow our people from within. They know us. They know what we expect. They know what they expect of them. We know what we're trying to do for our customers, how we want our employees treated, all of those things. And so we've kind of come up recently that, look, if you want to manage a black bear, you better have worked for us for at least a year, because it takes a year to understand what we're trying to do. And we found our greatest success with that. Some of our greatest failures have been where we get behind the 8 ball. We haven't developed people enough. We hire from the outside. They don't understand us. And we've taken this $2 million investment and handed it over to somebody who doesn't know us. And they can learn the basics of our business, learn how to write a schedule, learn where to buy our groceries, learn the basics of the business. But it takes time to learn the culture of the business. And that's the key to success, is that. So we've learned the hard way that we need to grow people within. We need to get ahead of it. We need to grow what we call a bench of people that are ready. If I lose a manager somewhere, I've got to have somebody ready to go to fill that position. I can't just, I need to go out and hire somebody. Well, there's a restaurant. I've got a restaurant in Missouri right now that lost a manager, and it's kind of an outlier. When you have an outlier, which it's far away from the closest one, and you lose a manager, it's hard to keep that place going, because it's hard to get people there to run it. It's hard, all of that. So we sit there and we need to get ahead of the game as far as getting people ready that can run our business. And so we're going to invest in that. We're going to identify a group of people within the business, and we're going to train them, and we're going to make them ready to take a job somewhere, wherever it is, and we will pay them well and incentivize them well to do it. And but it's a constant issue.
So that was going to be my next question. In fact, you just touched on it. But so I understand that there's different markets have different cost of living, right? LA has a different cost of living than Mount Shasta. So, but in general, how do you, what is kind of the pay ranges of managers, and then how do you incentivize them when you say that you do incentivize them?
Yeah, well, different markets, again, have different levels of, it takes more to hire a manager in the Bay Area where there's high cost of living, high housing costs, all that. And in Southern California, high housing costs, travel costs, because everything's kind of spread out. Sometimes people have to drive to their work. So the manager's pay is kind of predicated upon the living costs of the area which we do business in. The competitive environment in that marketplace may cause you to say, look, if I'm going to hire somebody here in this market, it's competitive. We're going to have to pay more to get somebody to make a move. And you got to pay them significantly more than where they're at for them to make a move, right? Because it's a chance for them too. We talked about culture. And again, that's why I like growing people from within.
Right.
They know. And but the pay scales are predicated really on the cost of living in each of the markets that we're in. And it's the same way around what we, charge for food. We've got different level. The menu's the same across the whole system, but we can't charge the same price for that food across the whole system because there are different cost of living, different minimum wages. All of those things are all part of the scenario. So we'll have, 10 or 15 different pricing schedules for the same food predicated on the cost of living in the market. So,
yeah. Okay, so let's talk about minimum wages a little bit. So California's kind of gone crazy with that, right? And I know you're multi-state, but most of the listeners are familiar with Reading. So I know McDonald's is advertising $20 an hour to come work at McDonald's. When you're entry level person, you're trying to get a dishwasher, that basic entry level person. How are you recruiting those people and being successful in retaining them and growing them in your business?
Well, in California passed a minimum wage law for fast food that was $20 an hour. All right. So that didn't cross over into our realm, which is full service. We get it. So it didn't cross over into that. Many of our employees are tipped. Our servers are tipped. They make California minimum wage, and then they make hopefully a significant amount of money beyond that. We don't have a lot of turnover in our servers because we're busy and they make a pretty good living. But somebody in the back of the house, a dishwasher or a prep cook or even a cook, is really predicated upon what you can find, who wants to come to work, and you pay them what you have to pay them to come to work. We provide them. If somebody came in and wanted to work as a dishwasher, which is really the beginning rung on in the restaurant, is dishwasher in the back of the house, kind of a host in the front of the house, greeting guests. Okay. So. And so we'd like to tell the people in the back of the house, you come in as a dishwasher, and hopefully within a certain amount of time, we'll start training you to prep food. And after you do that, we'll train you to cook food. Well, the pay scales go up exponentially as you come through the restaurant. I started in the restaurants as a dishwasher when I was 15. I made $1.78 an hour. I'll never forget that number. I made about $15 in a day, and I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. I would make $15 a day. And when I turned 16, I bought a car, and you could put gas in your car back in 1971 for 25 cents a gallon. So $1.78 an hour wasn't too bad.
That's great. Yeah.
But that's how you do it. So we bring people in, they work hard, and we will train them to do more and to help them grow in the business. We want people to grow in the business. We want people to end up wanting to be a cook. And then we want people to start taking supervisory and manager roles. We move them into a supervisor, then into an assistant manager, and then hopefully into a manager, because they know us and they know if they're hardworking, they're gonna be successful.
Okay. So this is great. Thank you. I want to touch on why you joined a bank board and kind of what you learned through that process, because your bank just merged with another bank, right? So just kind of, that seems like a departure from restaurant business, but I know a lot of very successful business owners end up joining bank boards. So kind of talk me through that and why and what you accomplished through it, and kind of your decisions to do it in the first place.
Well, I love business. I think about 55 years of experience in business. May just be the restaurant, say the last 25 and just solely the restaurant. But before that, I was a CEO of a company that built convenience stores and gas stations, and I incorporated great food into a convenience store environment. We owned a restaurant, we owned a motel. I was the CEO of that. Back before that, I was in banking. I was in graduate school in Chico, and my daughter was born at the time, and so I had to get out of graduate school. I went to work for Bank of America, which was a great background for business, just to learn how to control cash and the controls that you need in any business, and all the things, customer service and managing employees. It was a great first step for me. But to this point, again, I like helping people. We'll probably talk that we're in this Vistage group at some point. Yeah. Well, it's the same way. I'm in Vistage. For those of you who are out there that don't know of Vistage, Perry probably explained it to you, but it's basically a CEO group that helps each other weather issues and talk problems and all of that. I love helping other business people. I love helping people. I've been lucky in my career now's my time to start paying back and helping other people be successful too. So that fit right into this bank board that I was on, in that we really helped people. We really helped them grow their business. And that's just not handing out money left and right. It's helping them be successful by helping them understand the profitability of their business, understand the basics of how you grow a business and the financial stability you must have to be able to grow it, and then to reach out for debt to add into your business. That, the bank just wants to make sure when they lend you money that they're going to get repaid. I mean, that's the deal, right? That's how they make money on the interest they make and the fact that you're going to pay them and it's not going to go south on them. So I love that. And I love being on a loan committee and talking and analyzing business and helping people grow their business. That's what gets me going today. I help other people in business all the time. I've helped other restaurants all the time. I never charge a penny for it. I just want them to be successful. And if they sit there and avoid some of the problems that I had as I grew my businesses over the last 50 years, that it's something that I should be doing. It's just paying back for the success that I've had. So that's why I liked the bank board. It was challenging. I like being challenged. I like, again, being a positive force in the community. So
yeah. So now that the bank's merged, are you still on the board, or are you off the board now?
I'm off the board.
Okay.
Bank board of Cornerstone Bank in Reading, Red Bluff. And we just sold to Plumas Bank, which was a much bigger but local bank too, that started in Quincy, California. And so it was a good mixture. It was a good time for us to do that. But they wanted only one board member at a time to come from Cornerstone into their board. And I'm still chairman of the board of Black Bear. And much of my time was taken up on Black Bear. So I felt it was in the best interest of the new entity that I just concentrate on this.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Well, so you touched on Vistage a little bit. We have touched it on past podcasts, but I do want to say, just for the people who might be listening to this one, God, what a tremendous organization that is. And it's helped me so much because, it's so funny. I've told the story a couple times, but when I joined Vistage, I was really looking for mentorship and really help on how to be. We're all trained to be whatever. We're trained. In my case, I was trained to be a project manager. Travis Corder was trained to be a farmer. Paul Reuter was trained to be an engineer. We're not trained to be CEOs, right? That's kind of haven't seen any, maybe at Harvard, but I haven't seen many, Chico State or Sac College programs to be a CEO, right? You have to go learn in the real world, but really looking for that mentorship. But I remember joining and so excited to have some mentorship and really just came into that with this thought that my business was harder than anybody else's business. That was I'm so dumb for being in construction. It's a low bid. The only way you can get work is being cheaper than everybody else. And it's so much harder than everyone else's business. And probably the greatest thing, and obviously I'm exaggerating that a little bit, but really did think my business was particularly difficult compared to most. And then when you get around all of these other very successful CEOs running very successful businesses, you realize, holy cow, I don't have half the problems that some of these guys deal with, and every business is hard. And that's probably the biggest takeaway. And you've got to be diligent. You've got to be passionate about it. You've got to pour into your people. You have to continue to reinvest in your business. And it's all about getting the right team members in place before you get anything else going. And to you in particular, you have been just an incredible mentor to me and to our entire group. You are so really well respected, Bruce, and you're so selfless with your giving. You're just never what's in it for me. I think that's true of the whole group, but you're one of the original. In fact, you're the number one member, I think, that went into the Vistage group to get started with Martin. And you just set the bar for everything that's good in our Vistage group. And I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank you for being so spectacular.
Appreciate that. Again, I like helping people. I like helping businesses. And it's whatever business you're in, I've learned that many of the problems are the same. You
Yeah.
know, most of the
100%.
problems that we have around in Vistage or in any group is how to build the team, how to get the right
Yeah.
team around you. As a CEO, we're only as good as the people we have around us.
Yep.
And putting the right people in place at the right time around you, and building the team that will then execute your dream as CEO. And if you don't have that, it's going to be hard. And so much of the time that we spend is that very issue, building the team around you. I've become a much better CEO after all these years as being part of Vistage, because one of the benefits that I've seen is I give a lot of advice in Vistage. I mean, sometimes I think I talk too much in the group because I just had years of experience, right?
Yeah.
But it's good for me because I can quickly see the results of the advice that I give. And if they take my advice and take other people in the group's advice and actually execute that, it's remarkable what happens. Yeah. And we've seen great successes within this group of people that we're involved with here in Reading. Really around the table. We probably got 16, 18 members that sit around the table, and we talk about these things, and then you go and execute it in your business, and it's remarkable. We've seen remarkable results. So it's made me better because I can see the results of what I'm preaching. It's also different when you're helping somebody else versus yourself. You know, sometimes in yourself, you do not have the confidence, or am I doing the right thing, whatever. You need to talk about it. I often say this, a CEO of a company is the loneliest job in the world, because you can't go to your fellow employees or to your board of directors or to whoever, not to your banker or whatever, and sit there and say, I really don't know what to do here. The crossroads, should I do this or should I do that? Well, the one thing, and maybe it's not, maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong, but as a CEO, we have to exude strength. We have to exude decision making. We have to provide an example for our companies and how we're moving forward. And sometimes you're not sure, but you surely don't want to go to your board of directors and say, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have an idea, because guess what? They'll find somebody else who will, right? So we sit there and talk about all these issues, and we kind of come to a common direction that we give and advice that we give in Vistage. And I think, Perry, you've learned that the advice has been good, and I think you've shown remarkable growth over that 7-8 year period. Personally, I think your business has shown remarkable growth over that period. And I think that's the same around the table there. So it is really something. I advise CEOs out there that could be listening to sit there and say, look, it's time to invest in myself. I need to invest in me. We're oftentimes don't want to spend the money to do something. Budget's always tight, blah, blah, blah. But you have to invest in yourself as a CEO to ensure that you're doing the right things, to learn, to get some confidence in yourself. So
yeah, 100%. No, it's literally been, I would say, one of, if not the most important and best business decision I've ever made. And it was just, really kind of lucky how it fell into my lap. There's a guy named Lee Knobman. He doesn't mind me sharing this. And he bought the Dixie Valley Ranch up here where we live, up in northeastern Shasta County. And it's a huge ranch. I want to say it's more than 10,000 acres. It's massive. It's a big, big ranch. And he flies in a Citation 4 and lands and heads out to his ranch. And I'm like, I've got to get to know this guy. So ended up talking to him at a graduation party of common people we knew. And he was just so transparent with every mistake he'd made and what he'd done right, what he'd done horrible. And just that's kind of that same theme that you were just so giving with on telling our whole audience about. Everyone thinks that business owners that are successful have just been success after success after success. A lot of people have that misperception, and they don't realize that we make horrible mistakes along the way also. And the difference is, I think, for a lot of people and entrepreneurs that really push is, do you get discouraged and really talk meanly to yourself that you shouldn't be doing this, you don't know what you're doing? Or do you say, wow, I just learned a really valuable lesson and it cost me a lot of money, so I'm never going to forget it, and not make that mistake again, pivot and continue? And, he was so transparent in this, telling me every mistake, and just some things that I won't share because they're pretty private. But I went, hey, it's great talking to somebody that's so willing to say, here's the mistakes I've made, here's the things I've done right, here's the best advice I would give you moving forward. And I said, I'm looking for that type of mentorship. What would you suggest? And he said, well, let me tell you a story. He has a whole bunch of very successful construction supply businesses, and he had a development going on the side. He was pulling all of the cash from this development and he knew it was going to be successful, but the bank at the time, the economy was doing this, and they were moving in to foreclose on his business. And they told him, hey, we will withhold foreclosing on you for 6 more months if you join Vistage. And he's like, I said, at that time, I would have told them I would have cleaned their toilets, for 6 more months. So whatever I got to do, And so he said he kind of just did it because it's what the bank was forcing him to do to keep the development going. And as it turned out, he said it was literally the best thing I have ever been involved with. He goes, there's probably one in Reading. You should look it up. And that's how I found you guys, found Martin on the phone, signed up online, right over the phone with Martin. And it's just been a tremendous thing for me. And I think for a lot of the people that are in our group. But like all things, you get out of it what you put into it. You need to show up. You need to engage. You need to ask for the advice. And most importantly, then, there's a lot of different, what I love is you get a 360 of advice from people. Some of it you agree with, it resonates with you. Some of it doesn't resonate with you, but other times I'm like, oh my God, that's most of the times I didn't even think of that. That's a brilliant idea. And you take the good with it and go and execute. And then, of course, next month they're saying, what'd you do about that, Perry? And there's that built-in accountability as well, which has just been phenomenal. So I want to thank you for your role in that.
Decisions in the advice we gave, we need you coming back in a month or 2 or 3 and saying it worked or it didn't work. Helps us to ensure that our advice is good. I like helping people, and I like giving advice that helps them grow their business. And so I just my word to other CEOs and business owners out there is, we're not an island, and you're not an island. And if this kind of group, Vistage, is something that could really help you in running your business, no matter what business you're in. Again, because I said there's commonality of themes across the board on what people's problems are, whatever business you're in.
Yeah. Well, that's really well said. Bruce, I think we're doing great on time. I want to be respectful of your time. I really want to say thank you for not only just to join, this podcast, but for being just a great friend to me, being such a great mentor to me. The advice that you and the Vistage Group have given me has completely transformed our business in some very positive ways. And I have a debt of gratitude that I'll never be able to repay to you. So, but anyway, just want to say thank you for being so gracious with your time and your knowledge and your expertise.
Yeah, thanks again. No, I've enjoyed it. Enjoyed our friendship. Enjoyed you being willing to share with me the challenges that you had early on, and let me help you and advise you, and which again has made me a better CEO, knowing that the advice actually was solid and that it bore fruit for you. So again, thanks for that. Thanks for the friendship, and thanks for allowing me to be on the podcast. Hopefully we haven't bored everybody. They turned off after 5
I
minutes.
don't think so. I think it was great. I think it was fantastic, Bruce. Thanks for everything.